Other than that, their offer is great.
Yeah, I agree. Number one's very attractive.
It's really clean. Offer number 2, can you match offer number 1?
3 offers, 1 winner, no participation awards given.
So Max, we've got 3 offers on the table on this beautiful Birchwood home. What are we looking at as far as offers go? What do we have on the table?
We've got 3 solid offers here. Offer 1, we've got a base price of $540,000. That's where they're coming in at. They do have an escalation taking us up to $560,000.
Wow.
Escalation very common these days, but taking us up $20,000 to $560,000. They are financed 20% down, 20% solid down payment. They are including $10,000 toward a low appraisal if that were to happen.
Okay.
Waiving their inspection. They're providing proof of funds for their down payment, and they're closing in 21 days.
It's pretty solid. And one of the things on there that we don't necessarily see on the other 2, and we'll get into those, is the proof of funds for the down payment.
That's right.
And that's a really strong point, because it's one thing to say that you have the money, and then it's another thing to show that you have the money, right? And so I really like that they're including that. It's not just for cash, it's for down payment. So what do we have as number 2?
Offer 2, we've got a strong competitor here. We've got a base price of $540,000, similar to our first offer, but they're going to escalate up to that $600,000 mark. They have a $10,000 earnest money that is non-refundable with That's a topic. Yep, we'll get into that. Yeah. They've got a 1-day pass or fail inspection, so they're retaining the inspection, but with the pass or fail results there. They are disclosing some contingent funds, which is their money, but they don't have immediate access to that, and they're closing in 30 days.
Okay, so the closing is pretty comparable. They are not waiving inspection, but it is a very aggressive 1-day pass fail inspection. And this is interesting, because in that the language of the inspection, there's actually specific lines in there, a number of them, that they would have to cross out to truly make it pass fail. So when we're analyzing these, it's great, but it's kind of more of a handshake. I trust you, you trust me. We're gonna just do pass fail. We're not gonna negotiate, because sometimes people end up coming back and saying, hey, we're thinking about failing it. We didn't cross off all the language in the 35, and which is the inspection contingency, and we're gonna fail. And if you're already 10 days down the road or whatever it is, and you don't want to have to go back on the market, right? And so something to take into account.
I totally agree. And the nature of inspections is, waiving them is very competitive. There's other ways to be competitive with that, and I think this pass or fail is a good example of that. And if you truly are making it pass fail, like you said, crossing out those relevant portions on the Form 35 to really make those the 2 options.
Most people don't do that, though.
Right.
Most people are relying on the good word of both parties. Which is cool, which is fine, but it's not the most correct thing to do. Just FYI.
Okay, offer number 3 is looking pretty good. We've got a $550,000 purchase price. It is all cash.
Oh my God.
We've got $10,000 non-refundable earnest money as well, with a 1-day inspection, full inspection, or however you want to say that, retaining all of their rights to renegotiate, move forward, back out, and they're closing in 30 days.
So we've got the cash offer at $550. We've got the escalation on offer number 1 to $560, and then we've got offer number 2 that goes up to $570.
Correct.
So offer number 2 is our highest at $570. Technically, price is the agreed upon price at the start, but that can change based on the structural integrity of the house, and it can change based on a low appraisal, because we don't get to determine, unless we go with the cash offer, we don't get to determine that is market value.
Yeah. So initially I have 2 thoughts there. Yeah. Thinking about the inspections and the appraisals. Yeah. How can we tighten those things up to make them really as solid as possible? Not trying to take things away from the buyers. I would want them to have the opportunity to get things inspected, but there's a couple suggestions we could make here. And I think one is including some additional funds if the down payment comes in low, and that is that 22 AD form. So I think that's a really great step to see if those people are willing to do that, to put some money on the line there, just in the event that situation unfolded.
So basically we go back to offer number 1 and we say, hey, look, you've got strong down, you're waiving inspection, that's great. You've written a really clean offer that closes in a really reasonable amount of time. Is that a reasonable amount of time? Can we actually close in 21 days?
Sure.
But then also go back to offer number 2 and say, hey, look, I'm trying to give everyone a level playing field. I want to make sure everyone has the information they need to make their offer as best and tight as possible. One of the other offers has additional down. Are you able to do that?
Yep. Are you able? Yep.
That's the 1-day pass fail inspection. I don't think is the end of the world if it's truly a stronger offer and we can tighten up the financing side of it. Really, when that AD becomes important, as you know, is when they're putting down 20% on the first offer, and it looks like it's a conventional because it's under the conventional loan limit, right?
Sure.
So on both of those, we're probably okay, but we're definitely more risk on offer number 2 because it's higher and they have a lower down payment.
Yep.
Probably not like probably not super likely that we're gonna have a low appraisal. It's pretty uncommon.
Yeah.
But the market is escalating, is just appreciating so fast that it's important to analyze all those pieces too.
All right. What do I like about that cash offer? There's lots to love. Cash, one of the beautiful things about it is that it can allow for quicker closings, and that's sometimes attractive to sellers. I know that for our clients here in particular, they need to move quickly. So the cash element could be very attractive. When you stack it up against offer 1 and 2, that purchase price, it's not as high.
Yep.
So I might, like you said, give everyone the same information, but here's what we've got on the table besides this. Maybe seeing if they'd be willing to move in a direction of either completing a pre-inspection or making that a pass-fail inspection.
Yeah, you could even go back to all 3 parties and say, look, you're the only 3 on the table. We're not going back to anybody else. We're willing to give it another day for everyone. Can you guys do pre-inspections? We prefer everyone has all the information they need to bring us a good offer that doesn't have any contingencies. The other piece on that cash offer,
what do you think?
I mean, I would go back to them and push them, say, hey, look, these other 2 offers are higher than you, and they're solid financed offers. And financing is cash is king, people say, but also when it's in this range where we feel comfortable about our list price and where it could go, and list price to sale price in the neighborhood. I mean, I go back to them and say, look, these offers are just as strong, but they're stronger in the price point. And what I really like about offer number 1 that offer number 3 has not provided is proof of funds.
Yes.
So great, you have cash. I could come to the table and say, $560, I've got cash, and I don't have cash, and I have to disclose that. Obviously, I would be on the hook to perform, but the whole point of that is I would go back to them and say, I would go back to each party and have tightening points, right? Let's raise your offer number 1. Other than that, their offer is great.
I agree. Number 1's very attractive.
It's really clean. Offer number 2, can you match offer number 1?
I've got a question for you about offer 1.
Yeah, fire away.
I noticed that they did not make their earnest money non-refundable. Is that something you would approach them with?
It's meant to be there to have skin in the game for the buyer. So if they don't perform, the seller will receive that money. But it's also something that I think is important to not be released immediately to the seller. But what we're seeing more in this market is the language, and I'm quoting Barb from our brokerage, and that is converted to a deposit and released non-refundable, instructed by buyer, and applied to purchase price. So there's very specific language around that. Non-refundable earnest money is too vague. So I don't want to push those people to do that. I would focus on probably more on getting disclosure, getting them to come up on the cash offer. And the earnest money thing, I think, is whatever. And then offer number 2 to do AD, to do additional down. And then you kind of give everyone the same opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Hey, here's where we're at. Obviously, based on what the seller has allowed us to disclose. But most of the time in the seller's position, they're like, hey, do what you have to do. Right. You're the professional to get us the best situation.
I approach it. I appreciate the way you were saying that. I try to reach out to each party. I'll give them a call. I want to actually talk to these people, these listing agents, and have a discussion and really let them know that we're not trying to be tricky here. We're trying to give everyone an opportunity and just clarify where we're at and what could be done if people were inclined to do so to make things even stronger. And they can take that advice, and if their clients are willing, make those changes. And they also don't have to. They can say, no, we're going to stay where we're at. So I just approach it with a very transparent, but also very respectful conversation with them. Always keeping my seller right here on the shoulder and thinking that I'm not going to say anything ever that they wouldn't want me to be saying.
Jeopardize them.
Also, whether they get the offer or not, they're always getting a call from me to let them know that. Always.
The one that's enticing but not clear is the cash offer. And so I would go back to them and say, look, we need proof of funds. Can you send those over immediately, please? And I want to make sure they're either contingent or non-contingent, because that makes a difference, right? Also, if they are contingent, what is the timeline of how quickly they could be released or transferred? What is the process for doing that? Can it happen? Is that why you need 30 days? Can we move that time up? And then I would say, look, at this point, that's great. The 1-day inspection is fine, and I want to make sure you have that. But then there is another party that is a really strong offer that's willing to waive their inspection. And, you know, this is a house in Birchwood that's maybe 1930s or whatever it is, and the seller, you know, needs to move as quickly as possible and also net as much money as possible. The home is dated, moderate disrepair. I mean, I would probably be pushing the other parties to be more like offer number one, because they're kind of the poster child on this offer review, right?
Yeah, it's about as tight as it could be. Yeah.
It's almost like they're going up to 560. It's almost better to take their offer at 560 if you just don't have anything changed. Better to take their offer at 560 than the other two offers if no one changes anything. Would you
I
agree on
agree.
that?
I would take one. Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Cross that escalation out.
Yeah.
Cross it out on the 21. Cross out the escalation addendum and counter with a price change.
You just don't want to be liable for any mistakes on the escalations, the math of the escalations. And I just like to keep things simple. It's so much simpler for me. It's not that I can't do math. I would hope I can do math, or any of us can do math, but ultimately it just simplifies. Like, look, you've already said you're going to this number. Let's just simplify it. Let's remove this. Let's get you to whatever that number is, the max. Here's the competing offer.
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of an in the middle element, which is why having a good broker, right? There's lots of good brokers in this town. Having a good broker, somebody that knows how to communicate verbally what's happening, like really communicate well with each one of the brokers and go back to them and say, look, this is what we were talking about, giving each person a fair shake at this and saying, okay, currently the seller has given me authorization to share with you what needs to be shared in order for you to bring a good offer. Step one. Step two, here's where we're at. Here's where your offer is. Here's the strength points. Here are the weakness points. And if we do send this back as a counter to you, if you can come up to this number and we can counter back, we'll cross this off and counter back, remove the escalation. Will your client sign off on it? And then you get that. You don't just send it back to them, right? And assume it, which puts your client at risk. You have that conversation and you say, look, you just make sure it's coming back your way. This is the way we want to do it. We're going to keep things simple. People like that. A lot of people like to keep things simple. Are you guys going to sign off on it at that? I'll talk to my client. I'll get back to you. Cool. Sounds good. I'm going to wait to make any sort of move on this until I hear back.
Yep. Excellent. That's a good way to go about it. I think ultimately we arrived at offer one. If nothing changed, depending on what offer three was willing to flex on a bit or, alter, offer three could be a strong contender too. I really don't think that any of these is a poor offer.
No, they're all good.
Yeah.
Would you consider a backup offer?
Yeah, absolutely. Depending on what three was able to, where they landed, I might offer that position to offer number three. That's a great thing to know too, that if your initial offer is not accepted, things do fall apart and you do have the opportunity, if things allow, to become the backup buyer.
And there is an addenda that would be sent over. The seller would sign your offer with that addenda attached to the front page, which is the 38. I believe it is. It's the backup offer and backup offer addenda, which in the event that the first offer terminates or rescinds or they fall out of contract, whatever the reason is, your offer automatically goes into first position. So it's great because many times you can fall into first position. I've had it happen many times. So don't give up. If you're in second position or offered second position, go for it. But the caveat being that if you find something else, want to write on something else because time goes by, you have to terminate that offer. Like you have to give your termination on that one. Otherwise you're stuck being committed to buying two houses and you have to have the means to buy two houses. So don't do that if you can't buy two houses.
Well, sounds tough.
Yeah.
A lot of people these days are thinking that listing agents and the seller's market, they're just sitting back collecting offers. And while many listing agents are overwhelmed with a lot of offers and the interest in their listings, it's super great. Not all offers are created equally. So it's really fun to kick back and take a deeper dive into each one and see what points make it so strong, maybe identify some of its weaknesses, and then have that conversation going with the listing agents to really keep everybody moving forward and in the loop.
Don't ever give me socks.
No, I wouldn't ever gift you socks.
Unless they're new, I'll take new socks.
Yeah.